Lore Together is proud to be part of the Boss Rush Games Network. Feel free to find out more at bossrushgames.com/network. Hi, I'm Safi.
And I'm Mystic.
And this is the Lore Together podcast. This is a podcast where we go over everything storytelling, world building, and characters in video games. Because it's what we like to do together. We lore together.
Yep, and this is episode 87.
Yeah, I think I mixed up a little bit of the wording in the
It's fine.
intro. Just trust me that our intro is good.
If you'd like to contact us, you can do that by Twitter, Instagram, Mastodon, Reddit, and YouTube, all down in the description, or by email at loretogether@gmail.com. And if you'd like to support this podcast, you can do that in one of two ways. First is to give us a review wherever you're listening. Thumbs up, 5 stars, whatever it is. The other way is through Patreon at patreon.com/loretogether, where you can pay a per episode pledge to get early access to our episodes, as well as early access to our Let's Plays, including Dragon Age and Skyrim, which them being delayed is on me.
That's all on Mystic.
So
I was trying so hard to be so good with my Dragon Age schedule because we have a lot to get through. A lot.
as well as the audiobook that I'm slowly working through, and our mini episodes, which we have a couple more in the works as well.
Yes.
So, episode 87.
Yeah.
Should I tease this or just go into it? We're kind of on a little crunch because of Little Buddy. So
Okay, don't put this all on Little Buddy. He was sick for a weekend and now is feeling very clingy. So we're going to get to what we can through this and hopefully release this episode on time. Regardless, tease however much you wish.
Okay. This is a game franchise by Obsidian Entertainment.
We do like an Obsidian game here.
And it came out in 2015.
I should know this, shouldn't I?
Possibly. It's not quite your genre.
Oh. Okay. Blanking. Totally
Okay,
blanking.
we are going to start with Pillars of Eternity.
I don't know what the heck we're talking about in any way, shape, or form.
As I said, 2015 game from Obsidian Entertainment, originally published by, I believe, Versus Evil or Paradox, one of the two.
Oh, okay.
Now they're owned by Microsoft, so
It's all blending together into a production soup, if you will.
yeah. This game is directed and designed by Josh Scheuer, who you will know from, I probably mispronounced that amazingly. I think I put an H in there somewhere.
I was going to say, is it Sawyer or Shoy?
It's Sawyer.
Okay. All right.
You know him probably best for Fallout New Vegas and Alpha Protocol, which we covered.
Yeah, both pretty good games.
Yep. Now, this isn't quite your genre. Maybe it is. I don't know. It's not one that you go out of your way to play, but this is a CRPG in the classic sense of interplay, like Fallout, Baldur's Gate, Icewind Dale.
Is this, you mean like the isometric interface? And
Yes.
It's not my usual. You know what? This is something where if somebody does a Let's Play and I think the story's good, I would go out of my way to watch it.
Yeah. Arcanum, we covered, is that same thing. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, I had friends that convinced me to try something that was like a similar MMO setup for something like that when I was younger. And now every time I see something in isometric, I just think of it. I just think of the shame of the things I chatted about and happened with that.
So, it's funny I mentioned Arcanum because Arcanum is probably one of our most watched YouTube, the episode release for Arcanum is probably one of our most watched episodes on YouTube.
P.S. We're on YouTube, so if for some reason you listen to podcasts on YouTube, that is an option for you.
Yes.
But, and it always amazes me. It's funny because Mystic was like, oh, look at that. Like, we have so few people who subscribe to our YouTube. And I'm like, that's a lot for us never talking about the fact that we have a YouTube outside of our live streams.
At least it's easier now. The link down in the description is very easy. It's just youtube.com/@loretogether.
I love that they did that. That makes it so much easier. But yeah, Arcanum, I could see that because it's a niche kind of crunchy little game.
Yeah.
You know?
This is about the same.
Okay.
The game takes place in the world of Eora. E-O-R-A. I may be mispronouncing a ton of names. Go with it. It's kind of what we do here. It's roughly based around 16th century medieval technology, typical fantasy stuff.
Okay.
Magic and power is determined by the quality of a person's soul.
Are we like weighing somebody's heart like we're going into the underworld for, ancient
There's going to be a
Egypt?
lot of metaphysical stuff here. Just we'll get to all of it. This is a franchise. We'll be back here eventually. There's the more lauded Pillars of Eternity 2.
Okay. I still don't know anything
And
about this.
hopefully someday in Avowed, Obsidian's first-person RPG adventure that has been in the works for quite some time.
Oh, gosh, production. Hell.
Yeah. We're making massive leaps over quests and characters. This game is huge. A single long play I found was over 24 hours.
We can't really complain, though, because we do like a long game if our Skies of Arcadia Let's Play is
But
anything.
the Cliff Notes that just covers the main plot was over an hour. And that was without people sharing dialogue, which we clearly didn't have the time to do that long of a recap. For some set dressing, though, let's talk races. We have the basics you'd expect, human, dwarf, elf, but then we get into more setting-specific stuff, like the Aumaua.
I'm sorry, what you call me?
Aumaua.
Amawa?
Aumaua.
Maui smells what brings us together today.
They're the largest of the Kith races. Kith is kind of like a catch-all term. It means the civilized peoples of the world.
Kith.
So when you hear Kith, just think people.
I just think of, with Elizabeth, now Kith.
Yeah.
That's what I think of. I have a friend who said it all the time.
They are commonly found in or near oceans, though not actually aquatic. They have an affinity for water, and many of their civilizations, such as Rautai, are based on naval dominance.
This sounds like a language that's not meant to be pronounced by humans. Like it needs to be
they are very large-mouthed and have sharp teeth and stuff, so yeah,
and
my
also
tongue doesn't work the same.
Live underwater?
No, they are not aquatic.
Oh. But they live near the water?
Yes.
Okay. So, and they're called the what?
The Aumaua.
Amaua.
Aumaua. I'm probably mispronouncing
Aumaua.
that. So, yeah.
Okay, Amaua. It doesn't sound right.
They
to
are
me.
they are the strong peoples. They're the brutes.
The brutes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Conversely, the Orlan are the smallest of the races, though many cultures don't consider them to be civilized at all. Also notable for their large ears, two-toned skin, and hirsute bodies, Orlans are commonly found in Erglanfeth and Ixmitil plains and parts of the Deerwood. They are known for their mental intensity and quickness.
Mental intensity?
Yeah.
What?
Lastly, we have the godlike.
Wait. Mental intensity. I gotta say, do they just look and think at you really, really hard? Or are we talking about like psionic powers?
Honestly, I didn't dive into the races too much. I wanted to have a write-up on them, but we don't. They don't factor into the story.
I was gonna say that is an interesting thing to note. Mental intensity, like what are you talking about? Like the fortitude of their will? Are we talking about their ability to move things with telekinesis? Like I'm so confused now.
Yeah. I added in the races last minute just to pad out. Honestly,
Yeah.
it wasn't necessary to the story at all. As far
Okay.
as yeah. So
Well, now you know how Mystic does his writing. Oh, this is too short. Got to put in something about
more
the people
like
in there, the
it
Kith.
felt like it's a fancy setting. We need to have something about the races.
Okay.
So
All right.
lastly, we have
Give yourself more credit there,
Yeah.
okay?
Lastly, we have the godlike, who are children of the Kith, who have been. I can't stop seeing. Like now, I say Kith, and
Please, Kith. Now, Kith. I'm sorry. I don't even know. That's referencing something I don't even know where, but it's just from a friend that I know from years ago who would just make that joke when people would fight.
I think it's a joke about
Mystic
Mike
lost it.
Tyson.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, everybody makes fun of it. But, like, it was one of those things where I had friends where, like, in games, people would, like, their characters would fight. And literally my friend would respond after, like, explaining what happened out of game. He'd be like, okay, now kiss. Like, kiss and make up.
So we have the godlike, who are children of the Kith, who are blessed with physical aspects associated with the gods, though some do not consider it at all a blessing. These aspects may take many forms and often come with mystical powers. Aberrant head shapes are typical, and godlike are unable to wear protective headgear, as it's nearly impossible to find anything that fits.
So they just made a whole race of big heads.
Because of their unusual nature and their inability to reproduce, godlike are often viewed with fear and sometimes wonder.
Wow. That I have given you a blessing, but now you'll never be able to wear a hat and you'll never have any progeny. Go forth.
The game also features 8 full companions, 11 if you get the DLC, which we're not including here.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, we won't be going into companion stories here in detail, but they do cover the wide range of characters from an elven wizard to an Aumaua chanter, all the way through the dwarf ranger and the human priest to an avian godlike paladin.
Oh, wow.
They
Okay.
all have their stories and quests and views on things as you'd expect. They have their own internal struggles and viewpoints on what you do.
So very much in that tradition, the RPG tradition of
Yes.
we try to make our characters somewhat rounded out people.
We open companionless with our player character traveling through an area known as the Dyrwood, spelled Dyrwood.
Dearword. Dearword. That
The
sounds like the end of a last name.
Yeah. The Dyrwood is a heavily forested coastal region where colonial powers from across the ocean have settled and formed an uneasy relationship with the local residents, the Glafathans.
Excuse me?
Glanfathans.
Who wrote these fantasy names?
Some of these names sound like they are literally just random words to me,
It feels
like random letters.
it feels like someone was trying to explain these races, but they were also being constantly prodded and tickled as they were saying it. So they couldn't speak the names correctly, and what got written down was them mispronouncing it through giggles.
So the funny thing is, I didn't do a blind first hour for our patrons like I usually do. Which, that's another thing you would get access to as a patron. You would get access to me going into a game blind before I do my research. I played this back when it first came out, and I first got it. I didn't beat it, but it's been years.
Yeah.
So I don't remember the pronunciations and stuff. I played it again recently. I did my video research, but the names are just like escaping me entirely.
Oh my gosh. If you start telling me that there is a place called the Glockenspiel, I'm out. I'm no longer doing this.
But the caravan is heading toward Gilded Vale, a small village. Most are on this caravan because the local lord is offering land and houses and stuff for people willing to claim it. However, on the way there, the road is blocked by a fallen tree. We, our player character, which can be any race and all that stuff.
Oh, wow. Including the ones you can't pronounce. Okay.
Yes. Have taken a bit ill.
Oh.
Setting up camp near some ruins, we are instructed by the caravan leader to make camp, and for us in particular, go out and get some specific berries to help stop our gut rumblings. He sends us out with Kaliska, a human female fighter who is there to watch our back. Basically, if he dies from whatever he has, I want you to tell me where the body is and then come back.
Right. I was going to say, this sounds like something out of Oregon Trail. Like,
Yeah.
You have died of dysentery in this fantasy world.
Yeah. After finding the special berries, I think they're called spring berries, we are on our way back to camp when we see Sparfell, who was to fetch water for the caravan. He's stumbling out of the woods before he falls over, an arrow in his back.
Oh, no.
When we approach the body, we are ambushed by some Glyphathan tribesmen who claim we have defiled their sacred temple, the ruins that we are camped outside of.
Oh, no.
Defeating them and running back to camp, we find the whole camp dead, save for Heoden, a human male who is being held hostage by the Glyphathan leader.
So it's you and this woman warrior.
Yeah, who you have no history with. She's just kind of like the person that the caravan
She's
leader
the one
sends you
making
with.
sure that you don't die on your way to pick berries.
Yeah.
And then you happen across these people who said you've defiled our sacred place, and then have all these survivors a hostage. Oh my gosh.
This is a classic RPG, so character dialogue and choice play heavily into all of this. Heoden might remain unscathed or might be injured. Either way, battle commences with the leader eventually. Mm-hmm. After he falls, a windstorm called a Biawak begins to blow.
These names. I can't. I'm sorry. You're probably going to get tired of hearing me say what's up with these names, but you can't say something like Biawak at me and not have me think that it's an insult in a language I do not understand.
Spelled B-I-A-W-A-C.
Biawak?
Biawak.
That sounds like somebody tried to spell out the sound that you make when a record scratches. Yes.
These storms are also called spirit winds and can rip a soul from a person's body.
Oh, their source of wait, can you still live without your soul in this game?
No.
Okay.
In his last dying breath, the caravan leader tells us to get inside away from the winds. So us and Kaliska and Hyoden, if he's alive, run into the nearby ruins of Silant Lis. If Hyoden was injured in the fight, he would request that the group rest before continuing on, while Kaliska insists that you press forward. If you do rest, Kaliska will leave the group.
Wow.
Bye!
Stubborn.
Oddly enough, if Hyoden is uninjured, resting will not cause Kaliska to leave the group.
I'm sorry, what?
So we can't head back out after the storm because the ruins have collapsed, so deeper in we must go. It's our tutorial dungeon. We traverse it and we come out into a clearing to find a hooded figure with a group of other people doing a ritual. Never a good sign.
Cult. Sounds like a cult.
The people all sacrifice themselves, save for the hooded figure.
Wait, how? Can I ask? Do they
It's-
just stab themselves? in
No,
the chest?
it's very ritualistic. They kind of like their souls just leave and go into this thing.
Okay.
So, but as they sacrifice themselves, we black out.
Wow.
Sometime later, we wake up. Hyoden and Kaliska, if they are both with us, our blood remains on the pavement.
Whoa. So it doesn't matter if she leaves you or not.
The figure that sacrificed themselves are all frozen in place. Somehow, we remain alive. Unfortunately, though we may be alive, we start to see things that aren't there. Hear sounds with no visible source. It feels like a dream with a strange realism to it, as the game states.
And suddenly this is Hellblade Senua's Sacrifice. And that's actually the game we're playing. Oh, I wish. If only.
We're talking things like dead bodies, people being burned at stakes, people being tortured, etc.
Yikes.
No matter what's happening, we need to seek some help. We're seeing things and stuff, time to get to a town, and the closest one is our original destination, Gilded Vale.
Okay. So we're still finally trying to get out of the Deer Woods.
No, we're going to be there the whole time.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the nation, essentially.
The nation is
Yeah.
Deer Woods. Okay.
It's either a nation or part of a nation. I can't quite remember. I think it is a nation of it in and of itself.
Is it a governmental entity
Yes.
with borders? Okay.
Yeah.
That's all I need to know.
Upon arriving there, we are finally told by the Magister why all those houses and land were for grabs. The Deerwood is suffering from a malady called the Hollowborn Crisis, also known as Waden's Legacy. We'll get to why in a moment.
Uh-oh.
This thing is nasty. Hollowborn are children born without a soul or spiritual essence, a defect immediately made apparent by their silence at birth. They are completely passive and have no sense of their own awareness or of those around them. As such, they are unable to take care of themselves or accept nourishment, which, as you can somehow see, doesn't go well.
Well, yeah, you starve to
Yes.
death then, yeah.
The Hollowborn phenomenon has been an issue long before this particular thing. Although it's very rare in modern times, it was more common before the gods took control of the wheel over 2,000 years ago. The wheel is basically how reincarnation works. We're not going to get into it now. We will get into it later.
If anybody is not familiar with the idea of a reincarnation wheel, though, Hinduism has the wheel of samsara. That's kind of an example of how something like that could work. Not to say that this is exactly like what's in this game.
Yeah.
But it's an interesting premise, to say the least.
Waidwin, though, basically this is Waidwin's legacy, this particular version of the Hollowborn Crisis, we can get into. He thought he was the avatar of a god, specifically Eothas, who is the god of renewal and light. When the people of the Deerwood killed him, literally exploded him, the first Hollowborn followed a year later.
Oh.
And this is not some ancient history. It was 2808 when that event transpired called the Saints' War. It is now just 2823.
Wow, so 15 years later. Yeah. And so it's almost kind of like the albatross around their neck for the death of the Waden.
However, the truth behind the Hollowborn Crisis is not known. People just blame that event.
Easy to do that.
There are a bunch of cures, none of which work the way you'd expect, or are actually successful. One of note was animancers, which animancy is kind of like the study of souls.
Okay.
So, animancers would try to use animal souls on the Hollowborn.
Oh.
And it seemed to work. The kids were often socially maladjusted and with little regard for privacy or social norms because they have an animal soul, but they became responsive and could eat and,
Grow and
Yeah.
hopefully be part of society at some point.
Yeah, the problems arose when the children reached puberty.
Yeah. Is this how we get werewolves?
Not entirely.
Okay.
Basically, animal soul, human going through puberty, or whatever race going through puberty, massive incompatibility, so the children ended up going feral and beast-like.
Wow. Interesting.
Yeah, needless to say, there was a bit of a public outcry, and most animancers were forced to flee.
But, you can't blame the animancers because, how are they supposed to know?
Right.
How are you supposed to know that this is going to end in tragedy? If anything, all it did was delay the grieving process that these parents were going through.
That's part of it, and also, this comes out during puberty, and for that whole life,
Yeah.
up until from when they figure this out to puberty, they're just doing this to a ton of kids. So you have kids who have animal souls who will go feral later.
You're just waiting to see when it's going to happen at this point.
Basically, there is no cure. These kids are not going to be...
It's essentially
Yeah.
it's almost like a terminal diagnosis because even though the child isn't going to necessarily die, you will lose that child to nature.
Yeah.
That's
I think
just,
most end up dying. But
that's so dark.
so now, Lord of the Land, Raedric, who is a piece of work that we're not going to get into.
Oh no. Piece of work in what way? Out of
He's
curiosity?
just despotic.
Okay.
He's just Iron Fist type guy.
Authoritarian jerk
Very
face.
authoritarian jerk face.
Okay.
Has a wife who is due any day now, and he's hired a bunch of animancers to ensure the child isn't born soulless. When none could provide a solution to the problem, they were hanged in the tree in the middle of town.
I'm sorry, that's not how you get results.
Right.
That's
how you ensure no one wants to help you.
Yeah, I mean, how dare you decide to try to help me with this uncurable disease that's misunderstood and possible. I don't know. That's just
The child is born hollow, just for the record.
Of course, that's why they're all
Yeah.
hung. Yeah.
Hanging from the tree I just mentioned is a dwarven animator named Caldera de Baranzi, whom we have a conversation with.
Oh, wait, what? You can talk to the dead?
She tells us, essentially, that we are what is called a watcher. And...
Wait a minute, is this technically The Giver? We're doing The Giver in a fantasy setting?
I'm unfamiliar, actually.
You mean the book?
I know of it, but I've never...
The main character is actually given this position called, I think it's I'd have to look back in the book because The Giver is a very compelling story, but it's the main character, who's this young boy, is given this role called the Watcher, and the Giver is giving him memories to watch and to see. I might not be getting all the terminology right.
That is
but
very interesting. Let us see how it plays out. When we talk of souls, though, in this game, we are not talking about some incorporeal things. Souls are almost quantifiable and very real things. Beyond Hollowborn, there are other soul maladies like fragmented souls or soul twins. Basically, more than a soul is shared by multiple people. And since souls are also reincarnated, past lives also leave marks on the soul. A watcher can see these souls and interact with them.
So that's why our protagonist is actually able to talk with a dead soul, so to speak. You're talking with the soul, not the actual person themselves. Yes. But that's also very interesting, too, because when you're talking about if the gods are real in this universe and they have a wheel, essentially a process for which souls are reintroduced into the world for one way or another, that would beg the question, why wouldn't these gods be giving out souls?
There's another watcher near Gilded Vale whom we should seek out to help with understanding our own gift.
Okay.
Problem is, he's become awakened, which is another soul malady, where either memories of a past life or a whole past personality awaken in the present day host.
Sounds like something from the Trill.
Sounds like something from Star Trek, yes.
Yes. I keep everything you reference, I'm like, oh, it's like this pop culture reference or that pop culture reference.
He's basically split between 3 different people. The problem is all these past lives we're seeing tortured and killed are not other people, but memories from our own soul's past lives.
Whoa, what?
Yeah. Meaning that we have been awakened, it just hasn't progressed as far as with him.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So we're essentially doomed, and we get to see what we get to look forward to in the future.
Yeah, and he goes nuts. He actually attacks you because one of his personalities is like part of the antagonist group and attacks you.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh. Now, can you, in theory, give these personalities to other bodies?
I do not know that, actually.
I just
That's
keep trying to solve it with all the other pop culture references I know.
He informs the player that it is impossible to forget memories that a watcher comes to remember, though he concedes that if there were any way to reverse the process of awakening, the secret would be kept by the Leaden Key. This is a group. They are a bit like a fundamentalist religious terror organization, focusing on destroying people, factions, and ideas it views as a threat to the gods and belief in them, such as animancy and its followers.
Animancy is a threat to the gods? Because it is essentially the idea is like you're toying with the choices that the gods have made?
We will get there.
Oh, no.
To find them, we are off to Defiance Bay.
Defiance Bay?
Yeah. So I am glossing over a ton of stuff. Between our tutorial dungeon to Gilded Vale, there's a bunch of side quests and
But
everything.
just still
Yeah.
hitting me with the crazy names like Defiance Bay. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Who
I'm just-
decided that?
I'm just making sure everyone knows that we are skipping lots of stuff.
Fair. Okay. So we're skipping all the way straight to Defiance Bay.
Yeah.
Dag nabbit.
There we find the Lady Webb. And I love her introduction. Listen to this. This woman clutches a thick stack of parchment with spindly, wrinkled fingers, their flesh stretched thin to near translucence with extreme age, a gossamer veil over pale blue veins. Ink splotches and candle burns dot and stripe her hands like a quilt patterned after some great, indescribable truth. She does not look up from her reading.
Whoa. Okay.
And a lot of these stuff is voice acted.
Uh-huh.
So, yeah, it's pretty good.
Nice.
She's basically a spy master, and with her help, we find out who the hooded figure was. You're going to love this. Theos Ix Arcanos.
That is the most normal sounding name that of anything I've heard in a bit.
He is the Grand Master of the Leaden Key.
Okay.
We also find out that he's been framing the Animancers for all this trouble with the Hollowborn all this time.
Wow. Okay, so their personal belief is that animancy is an affront to the gods, so they're going to prove it by making up a conspiracy. Okay. All right.
Yeah. This all comes to a head when a hearing is called to see if animancy should be made illegal within the Dyrwood. I think this is Duke, but it's D-U-C. Duke?
Either Duke or Duck. Let's go with Duke. It sounds
Duke.
cooler.
Duke Aver Wolfgren is assassinated before he can even give his verdict by an Animancer.
Wow.
However, right after he kills him, we see a soul leave his body. Keep in mind, most people can't see this type of stuff. Only our character can.
The Watchers, yeah.
Yeah, and he seems to be pleading with the guards before they kill him.
Wow.
Which I was reminded of that book we both read,
Oh.
Lock-In.
Yeah?
So,
Yeah.
because people were taking over people's bodies.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
That was so trippy. Oh, my gosh.
Good book. Anyway,
Such a good book.
the people start rioting, and the aggression is all against Animancers, which, fair.
Yeah.
They kill them all through lynching or stoning, and the rioters burn down the
Whoa.
Animancer Sanitarium.
Those poor Animancers. They didn't know what was coming.
Rushing through the chaos, we and our party end up at Lady Webb's home to find her guards all dead and she herself murdered. Talking to her soul, we find out that Theos killed her. We also find out that Theos is heading to Twin Elms. There, we finally get some idea of what these visions of past lives are, as it turns out that in a past life, our soul was part of the Leaden Key during the Inquisition. As it turns out, that in the past life, we were part of the Leaden Key during the Inquisition, which was led by Theos and the Leaden Key organization.
The Inquisition.
Yeah, which is why we're seeing people being tortured, burned at the stake, and such.
Right.
We're seeing acts that we perpetrated.
I really appreciate how Dragon Age tried to reclaim the word Inquisition because Inquisition is supposed to be a query of a situation at hand. It's not as much as now it's completely tied to the Catholic Inquisition that was literally just torture to prove how we're such good Catholics for driving Satan out of everybody who's not Catholic. So
the people killed during the Inquisition were those who spoke heresy against the gods. Now, I'm going to do something very strange here. I'm going to break storyline. We're going to completely forget the storyline for a while because everything in this game is a slow piece together.
Yeah.
It is one line here, little bits and pieces all over the place. We do get a couple of big exposition chunks, like from Lady Webb, but we're just going to start breaking all of these stuff down here. Let's talk about the history of the deities in the world of Eora.
Okay.
Before the current gods, people worshipped many different pantheons, which ended up in endless religious warfare.
Of course. That makes sense.
The Engwithan...
Who?
The Engwithan...
Why are you doing this to me? Oh my gosh.
Decided to begin research into everything of the spiritual world, the divine and the souls, to find the true gods and finally unite people.
That's a understandable want.
Yes. Eventually, after generations of study, they found them and everyone was eventually unified. The Engwithan are no more, save for one, Theos.
He's one of the OGs?
Yes. Except they didn't actually find the gods.
They made up something,
They
right?
found there were no gods at all.
For I've seen the throne of the Maker, and it sits empty.
And
this is the premise we should have had in Dragon Age Inquisition all this time.
And they looked to the rest of the world with thousands of false gods. Gods that told people to take slaves, to make war upon their neighbors and devour the slain, to burn their children alive and cover themselves in the ashes as a sign of their faith. All of that was unacceptable in their eyes, which is fair enough.
But instead of doing kind of an enlightenment of we have to find something that works for us and all of these races to come together, they invented the
plan was
faith.
simple. Replace the thousands of false idols with 11 that were no less false but had the decisive advantage of actually existing.
False gods that actually exist.
The plan was simple. Replace thousands of false idols with just 11 that were no less false but had the decisive advantage of actually existing.
Wait, I'm sorry. How do they exist?
So the Engwithan created giant machines of Arda, which is like this crystal material. It reacts with souls. It's also ubiquitous. It's used for jewelry and
Wow, okay.
One of which we see back at the ruins where Kaliska and Hadon died. It's that big machine that the souls were being put into. That machine mass harvested Engwithan souls. Basically, they just mass harvested their own people, which they then used to imbue the Arda with energy, which then they used to create the gods.
So the gods are literally just huge machines.
It's it's weird. So they are
huge constructs, really.
Born of huge constructs. I do believe they are actual things. They are actual living beings, quote unquote.
They actually have sentience of some.
Yeah, but they're not gods. Okay. They're not divine. They are created by a race using a massive amount of self-sacrificed power.
This is literally the golden calf.
Yes.
Jeez Louise.
And the gods, because they have such immense power, because they're, mass harvested souls, control the wheel. And basically the wheel is soul dies, it goes into essentially like a purgatory, then it goes on the wheel into a lottery, and then gets dispersed to another body.
Okay.
Could take years, could be fast. A certain god can actually hand pick you. So Most people will devote themselves to a single deity so that they don't have to go through the lottery, you know.
Right. They'd rather be special.
But the gods are in Gwithin. Let's start there.
Yeah.
And so they are basically using the wheel to mold society as they see fit by which soul goes where.
Oh, no.
So it's like, yes, you started with a laudable goal, and you took the exact wrong path to get there.
Right. Like, it's funny because they're talking about, like, we need to show gods that are going to bring out the best in people. And even I, as much as I think you don't need that to bring out the best in people personally, because I don't think any solution of any religion's really ever solved it out.
Yeah.
You know, and it's because people are inherently broken, in my opinion. But that's a personal take, okay? So, Mystic's already rolling his eyes like, why are you saying any of this? But I don't think they needed to take the extra step of doing this mass soul control. That sounds like if they just had some really cool statues and some people who claim to have some visions, they could have gotten to a unified religion without this crazy concocted
and it's like the only reason they were able to even do this is because they spent generations learning how the world worked. Like, you didn't have to play this whole metaphysical game.
Yeah. Like, and on top of that, I mean, the metaphysical game can be the faith of the system of your soul. It's almost kind of like the idea of the ancestors in Dragon Age. And there's a lot of other cultures, you know, in our real world, as well as in other realized imagined worlds that have this idea of, like, worship of your ancestors and appreciation for your ancestors. And you would think in a world that has naturally occurring reincarnation, that could be something that could be easily used and utilized to bring about something that has a creed that is more beneficial to humanity on the whole.
Yeah.
But instead, we got soul mechs? Like, this feels so bad.
So Boudica was intended to be the strongest of the gods and to rule the pantheon. She was simultaneously a patron of justice, oaths, and promises, and conversely, an entity willing to disregard the rules when it was necessary to accomplish her own goals. She could do what she wanted with Eora at the apex of her power, which was why the 10 other gods conspired to vanquish her, bringing the queen down to even footing with the rest of them.
Why is this Mythal? Why is this the whole Mythal myth in a different package? Like, this is very much similar to the idea of what happened to Mythal and what we understand of what happened to her in relation to the other gods with some of the stuff that happened in Dragon Age.
Yeah. Yet even in exile, Boudica remained a potent god and the favored partner of Theos, granting him effective immortality by awakening his memories in each of his lives. So basically, all the cheat codes. It is alongside Boudica that Theos has been scheming to keep the society ignorant of the creation of the gods. Were his intentions laudable at one point? Perhaps. However, Theos has done awful, evil deeds to keep the populace from discovering the Engwithian deceptions.
I mean, yeah, this is like your whole lives, generations of lives of your own are perpetuating a lie that you don't need to benefit society. Let's be perfectly honest. There's a better way to do this.
Yeah, and all of it is like if they discover the gods are fake, then barbarism and the warfare will come back. And it's like, you don't know that.
Yeah, you have no idea.
I don't know that because I haven't read the sequel or anything yet.
I'll just say this as our experience as humans on this planet. You have the ability to be a good person regardless of what or who you worship or don't worship.
So when we confront him finally at the end of the game, Theos's main goals are kind of revealed, and they are twofold. First, to keep people from knowing the true nature of the gods. Fair enough. We just talked about that.
Yeah, cover up your lie.
Yeah.
Okay.
But above that, he wants to restore Boudica to the top of the pantheon.
So allegiance to your false god.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that just make them a god merely in the sense of you gave Wodaka true power?
Yeah. Now, in order to do that, he needs a lot of energy.
So a lot of souls that aren't getting returned into the system, so to speak.
Yeah. So he has been siphoning the souls of the Hollowborn into one of those giant machines. You basically fight him at this thing. I forget what it's called, but like, yeah, that thing that holds all the souls, the Arda and everything.
Oh, man.
You basically fight him at one of these. And when you finally defeat him, we're kind of cured of our awakening.
Wow, okay.
And we'll be given a few choices to make, which will obviously change the course of the world. Regarding Theos, we can return his soul unaltered to the cycle.
No, I don't trust that
Yeah,
one.
basically that way he has to live with the memories of what he's done and the fact that he lost.
I don't like that. That's a revenge plot waiting to happen.
We can return his soul to the cycle, but with all past lives erased.
I don't know.
So
That
he
feels...
would be just like everyone else at that point.
Yeah, okay.
We can, I love these two. We can tear his soul apart savagely,
Ooh.
or tear his soul apart compassionately. Basically, we obliterate his soul either as a method of revenge or as a, like, you've lived too long.
You need peace.
You need peace.
I think that one makes sense in the idea that none of these souls were meant to be that long.
The last is banish his soul to basically prison, like a soul prison.
Oh, so it still exists, but it's just kind of like...
You're stuck. You're
Yeah.
in limbo for eternity.
Okay.
Now, the interesting thing is we also have control of the machine.
Wow. Okay. Oh, of Wodaka?
The machine of all these souls.
Oh, of all of them.
So we have control of the machine with all the Hollowborn souls in it, and we have a few options here.
So, okay, so you have what you do to this guy.
Yes.
And
And then we
then-
have what we do with the Hollowborn souls that are in this machine.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So we can send the souls back into the reincarnation cycle.
Okay, that sounds about right. Yeah.
We can return the souls to the bodies that they were intended for.
But what if they're feral or like what's going on with that?
Yeah. Entropically disintegrate the souls, ending their existence.
Oh, whoa, no. That sounds bad. That sounds like the wrong option.
Yeah. Distribute the essence to existing souls in Drywood to strengthen them. Sorry, in Deerwood to strengthen them.
Drywood, Deerwood, that makes sense. That one, I'm not sure. I mean, it depends on if there's any evidence that they need strengthening, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know.
There are two more options that depend on your discussions with the gods.
Other choices you could have made? Okay.
Allow the souls to pass through the veil to Wodaka.
Okay.
Or disperse the souls to an unknown location.
So away from Deerwood and everything else.
Yeah. And that's kind of
Okay.
where we end it.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, like, I would think you just want to keep the souls running because the gods are interrupting the process. You don't want to... You
Yeah.
don't want that process to be interrupted because it sounds like it's not doing any real good.
Yeah. Like I said, we'll be back here. We didn't even cover the DLC. There's fertile ground here to go through all the companions and stuff, so we can still come back to this.
Yeah.
And this is a very brief overview of the story.
There's a lot. I feel like I want to know the history of these mages with the souls. I want to know more about the nation states outside of Deerwood, all of that.
Yep.
There's a
So-
lot. There's a lot to get to through this. So
So we will be back in the future.
okay, sounds good to me. I like it. I like it. Though, of course, knowing us, we'll get back to it within about 2-3 years, maybe.
Yeah.
At this point, there's so many things on our plate, guys. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So.
But thank you guys for listening.
Yeah, thanks so much for listening. We should do some housekeeping. So, typically this is when I say make sure you could check the first hour live stream the Thursday after this this airs. Now, we're pushing it up to Wednesday.
Yeah.
And the reason we're doing that is because holiday plans. We
Yep.
have a holiday in America called Memorial Day weekend, and we've got plans for it, and it just makes more sense for us to do it on Wednesday. So hopefully we'll see you then, and hopefully we're like a good precursor for the beginning of your holiday weekend as well for those of you that celebrate.
Yep.
All right.
Other Thursdays, we are finally finishing Scars Vacated. By the time you listen to this, we'll be
done. You can watch the whole playlist on our YouTube channel if
Yep.
you weren't able to catch it live.
And then we'll be doing Tacoma.
And thank you for those of you who I know this is your firmament break.
Yes. So,
Which we'll get to that when we get to that.
yeah. But thank you all for listening again.
Thank you so much. Thanks so much as always. We always appreciate having you here to listen.
Bye.
Bye.